you're going to die. Before that happens, you'll probably wonder why you exist, whether anything matters, and if pineapple on pizza violates some universal law. Humans have been asking these exact questions for 3,000 years. We still don't have answers, just progressively weirder arguments. That's philosophy, not the turtleneck-wearing, Nietzsche-quoting at parties kind. The real kind. The why does reality exist and should I be panicking kind. We're speedrunning 3,000 years of humans arguing about existence, morality, consciousness, and whether you're secretly a brain in a jar. Spoiler alert, you might be. Let's find out. Philosophy literally means love of wisdom, which sounds adorable until you realize it's mostly just arguing about whether chairs are real. Here's what philosophy actually does. It asks questions science can't touch yet. Like, why is there something instead of nothing? What makes murder wrong versus just statistically unpopular? Do you have free will, or are you a meat puppet following chemical scripts? If a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around, does it make a sound? Philosophy splits into branches. Think of them as different flavors of existential crisis. Metaphysics asks, what is reality? Epistemology asks, how do we know anything? Ethics asks, what should we do? Logic asks, how do we think without embarrassing ourselves? Aesthetics asks, what is beauty? And political philosophy asks, how we organize society without everyone immediately killing each other. Philosophers have been fighting about all of this since before pants were invented. Let's meet them. Thales, circa 624 BCE. First guy to say maybe lightning isn't Zeus having a bad day. Maybe there's a natural explanation. Revolutionary. Also thought everything was made of water. Less revolutionary. Then came Socrates. Didn't write anything down. Just walked around Athens asking annoying questions until people wanted him dead. They succeeded. Charged with corrupting the youth and not believing in the gods. Guilty on both counts. Sentenced to drink poison hemlock. Died philosophically. His method? The Socratic method. Ask questions until your opponent realizes they know absolutely nothing. Still used in law schools to emotionally destroy first-year students. Plato was Socrates' fanboy, wrote everything down. Created the theory of forms, the idea that perfect versions of everything exist in a non-physical realm, and the stuff we see here is just knockoff garbage. Plato also invented the allegory of the cave. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave watching shadows on a wall. That's their entire reality. One escapes, sees the sun, realizes shadows aren't real. Comes back to tell everyone. They call him crazy and kill him. That's humanity in a nutshell. Congratulations. Aristotle was Plato's student, disagreed with literally everything Plato said, rejected the forms, said reality is here, not in some magic realm you can't touch, founded empiricism, the idea that knowledge comes from observing the actual world, also classified animals, invented formal logic, tutored Alexander the Great, and probably needed a nap. Before we leave Greece, we need to talk about the philosophy that refuses to die. Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium, around 300 BCE. Here's the core idea. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And that's literally it. That's the entire philosophy. Everything else is just commentary. The Stoics divided the world into two categories. Things you control, your thoughts, your actions, your judgments. Things you don't control, everything else. Other people, the weather, the economy, whether your coffee order gets messed up. Stop worrying about what you can't control. Focus on what you can. Sounds obvious. Most people never do it. Epictetus was born a slave, became one of the greatest Stoic teachers, said if you're upset about something, it's not the thing upsetting you, it's your judgment about the thing. Your boss yelling at you doesn't cause suffering. Your belief that you shouldn't be yelled at causes suffering. Change the belief, end the suffering, which either makes perfect sense or sounds like victim blaming, depending on your mood. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor, most powerful man in the world, spent his nights writing meditations, basically a diary of Stoic reminders to himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Also said, the obstacle is the way. Problems aren't blocking your path. They are the path. Every difficulty is training. Modern self-help books are still plagiarizing this guy 1,800 years later. Seneca was a playwright, advisor to Nero, and absurdly wealthy. Wrote about how wealth and status are meaningless. Everyone called him a hypocrite. He agreed and kept writing anyway, said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of your anxiety is about things that haven't happened and probably never will. Also said, rehearse misfortune. Imagine losing everything. When bad things happen, you'll be prepared. When they don't, you'll be grateful. That's negative visualization. Sounds depressing. Actually works. The Stoics also believed in living according to nature, not like going camping, like accepting reality as it is. The universe operates by logos, rational order. Humans are part of that order. Fighting reality is suffering. Accepting it is peace. Ob fati before Nietzsche made it cool. While the Stoics were teaching Romans to control their reactions halfway across the world, Eastern philosophers had a completely different take on the same problem. Theirs involved a lot less control and a lot more letting go. Confucius in China said society works when everyone knows their role and acts with compassion and ritual propriety. Basically, be nice and follow the rules. Sounds boring. Shaped 2,000 years of Chinese governance. Not boring. Laozi, also China, wrote the Tao Te Ching. Core idea, wu wei, effortless action. Go with the flow. Stop forcing things. The universe has a natural order called the Tao. You're ruining it by trying so hard. Basically the opposite of hustle culture and honestly kind of refreshing. Buddha, born a prince in Nepal. Left the palace, saw suffering everywhere, sat under a tree until he figured out why. Conclusion, 4 noble truths. Life is suffering. Suffering comes from wanting stuff. Stop wanting stuff. Follow the Eightfold Path. Achieve nirvana, not the band, the state where you're free from suffering and the cycle of rebirth, which sounds incredible until you realize it means detaching from literally everything, including pizza. After the Greeks, Europe entered the Dark Ages. Philosophy got absorbed by religion. Every question became, but what does this mean for God? St. Augustine merged Christianity with Platonism, said evil exists because humans have free will and we keep choosing badly. Also invented original sin. You're born guilty, thanks Adam. St. Thomas Aquinas merged Christianity with Aristotle, wrote the 5 ways, 5 alleged proofs that God exists. The Renaissance happened. Humans remembered they could think. Then the Enlightenment kicked the door down and said reason is king, tradition is dead. Let's figure out everything from scratch. Rene Descartes said, cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. His logic, what if everything is fake? What if you're dreaming? What if an evil demon is tricking you? What if this video is a hallucination and you're actually in a coma right now? You can doubt everything except one thing. You're doubting. And to doubt, you must exist. Boom. One certainty. Built an entire philosophy on it. Also invented Cartesian dualism. Mind and body are separate. Your brain is meat. Your mind is something else. Problem. How do they interact? Descartes said pineal gland. Science said lol no. John Locke rejected Descartes. Said you're not born with ideas. You're born a blank slate. Tabula rasa. Everything you know comes from experience. That's empiricism. Also wrote about natural rights, life, liberty, property. Governments exist to protect these. If they don't, overthrow them. This idea directly inspired the American Revolution. So thanks John. David Hume took empiricism to its logical extreme. Said we can't actually know anything with certainty. We only observe patterns. Just because the sun rose yesterday doesn't guarantee tomorrow. We assume it will. That's induction, but we can't prove it. Also said causation is just a habit of the mind. You don't see causation. You see event A, then event B. Your brain connects them, but maybe they're unrelated. Mind blown or not, we can't be sure. Immanuel Kant read Hume, had a crisis, spent 10 years writing Critique of Pure Reason to fix philosophy. Kant's big idea? We don't experience reality directly. We experience it through mental filters. Space, time, causation. These aren't out there in the world. They're structures your brain uses to organize sensory data. Reality in itself, the noumenon, is unknowable. You only know reality as experienced, the phenomenon. Also invented the categorical imperative, a moral law. Act only according to that maxim by which you can will that it should become a universal law. Translation: don't do something unless you'd be cool with everyone doing it. Lying? If everyone lied, language collapses. So don't lie. Murder? Universal murder equals extinction. So don't murder. Kant was fun at parties. Just kidding, he wasn't. By the 1800s, philosophers got tired of logic puzzles and asked, why does life feel so meaningless? Soren Kierkegaard, the first existentialist, said, life is subjective. Truth isn't universal. It's personal. You have to make a leap of faith to believe in anything. God, love, that your Uber driver won't kill you. Also said we live in despair until we commit to something. Most people avoid this by distracting themselves. He predicted doomscrolling in 1844. Impressive. Friedrich Nietzsche, the guy everyone quotes wrong. Famous line, God is dead, didn't mean literal death. Meant society killed the idea of God by relying on science and reason. But here's the problem. If there's no God, where does morality come from? Nietzsche's answer, we make it up, and we should. Stop following slave morality. Christian values like humility and meekness. Embrace master morality. Strength, power, creativity. Become the Übermensch, the overman, someone who creates their own values. Also said life is suffering, but instead of escaping, embrace it. Amor fati. Love your fate. If you had to live your exact life over and over forever, eternal recurrence, would you? If not, change your life. Jean-Paul Sartre took existentialism mainstream. Core idea, existence precedes essence. You're not born with a purpose. You exist first, then you define yourself. You have radical freedom, which sounds amazing until you realize it means you're responsible for every choice and you can't blame anyone else. Terrifying. Also said condemned to be free. You can't escape choice. Even refusing to choose is a choice. And other people, they turn you into an object. Hell is other people. Not because they're mean, because their gaze defines you in ways you can't control. Albert Camus took it further. Said life is absurd. You crave meaning. The universe offers none. That's the absurd. The clash between human need for meaning and the silent, indifferent universe. Most people cope by denying it. Religion, distractions, pretending life has inherent purpose. Camus said, no. Acknowledge the absurd, then live anyway. That's rebellion. Imagine Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill forever. It rolls back down. He pushes again. Forever. Camus said we must imagine Sisyphus happy, because the struggle itself is enough, which is either deeply inspiring or deeply depressing depending on your caffeine levels. Let's talk about knowledge. How do we know anything? That's epistemology. Rene Descartes again said clear and distinct ideas are true. If you can think it clearly, it's real. Empiricists like Locke and Hume said no, knowledge comes from experience. Rationalists like Descartes and Leibniz said no, knowledge comes from reason. Kant said you're both right. Some knowledge is a priori, known before experience, like math. Some is a posteriori, known through experience, like the sun is hot. Then came the skeptics. Pyrrho said we can't know anything, so stop trying. Suspend judgment on everything. Achieve ataraxia, tranquility. Descartes used skepticism as a method. Doubt everything until you find something certain. Modern skeptics say extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Burden of proof is on the claimant. If you say Bigfoot is real, prove it. I don't have to prove he's not. What about reality? That's metaphysics. Plato said the physical world is an illusion. True reality is the forms. Aristotle said no, physical reality is the only reality. Berkeley, an idealist, said physical objects don't exist. Only minds and ideas exist. To be is to be perceived. If nobody's looking at a tree, does it exist? Berkeley said God is always looking, so yes. Everyone else said that's cheating. Materialism says only physical matter exists. Everything, including thoughts, is just atoms and forces. Dualism, like Descartes, says mind and matter are separate. Monism says everything is one substance. Could be matter, could be mind, could be something else. Panpsychism says everything has consciousness. Rocks, atoms, your toaster. Sounds crazy. Some serious philosophers believe it. Your toaster might be having an existential crisis right now. What makes actions right or wrong? That's ethics. Virtue ethics from Aristotle says be a good person. Cultivate virtues like courage, temperance, wisdom. Avoid vices. Live a flourishing life, eudaimonia. How do you know what's virtuous? Look at what virtuous people do. How do you know who's virtuous? They have virtues, circular but practical. Deontology from Kant says follow rules. Actions are right or wrong based on duties. Lying is wrong, period. Even if lying would save a life. Yes, Kant was hardcore. The categorical imperative is the ultimate rule. Act only on maxims you'd want everyone to follow. Treat people as ends, not means. Don't use people as tools. Consequentialism says outcomes matter. The right action is the one with the best consequences. Utilitarianism from Bentham and Mill says maximize happiness, minimize suffering, the greatest good for the greatest number. Sounds great. Problems emerge fast. Is it okay to kill one person to save 5? Utilitarians might say yes. Most people say that's horrifying. Then there's moral relativism. It says morality is culturally determined, no universal right or wrong. What's okay in one culture might not be in another. Critics say this leads to moral paralysis. If everything's relative, how do you condemn atrocities? Moral realism says no, some things are objectively wrong. Murder, torture, pineapple on pizza. Debate continues. What about beauty? That's aesthetics. Plato said beauty is objective. The form of beauty exists. We recognize it imperfectly. Hume said beauty is subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder. Kant split the difference, said aesthetic judgments are subjective but universal. When you say something is beautiful, you're not just expressing preference. You're claiming others should agree, even though they might not. Art raises questions too. What is art? Can anything be art? If I put a urinal in a museum and call it art, is it art? Marcel Duchamp did this in 1917, called it Fountain. Art world had a meltdown, still debating. Some say art requires intention, skill, aesthetic value. Others say if the artist says it's art, which means your kindergarten macaroni sculpture is technically art. Congratulations. Political philosophy asks, how should society be organized? Plato said philosopher kings should rule, the wise should govern. Everyone else should shut up and do their jobs. Aristotle said humans are political animals. We need community. Best government is a mix, polity, combining elements of democracy and oligarchy. Hobbes said humans in nature are selfish and violent. Life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. We need a powerful sovereign, the Leviathan, to keep order, give up freedom for security. Locke disagreed, said humans have natural rights. Governments exist to protect these rights. If they fail, revolution is justified. Rousseau said humans are born free, but everywhere we're in chains. Society corrupts us. We need a social contract where the general will guide governance. Problem, what's the general will? Rousseau wasn't clear. Critics say it's a recipe for tyranny. John Stuart Mill said individuals should be free to do whatever they want, as long as they don't harm others. That's the harm principle, basis for liberalism. Your freedom ends where mine begins. Karl Marx said history is class struggle. Capitalism exploits workers. The bourgeoisie own the means of production. The proletariat sell their labor. Eventually, workers will revolt, seize the means, establish communism. No private property, no class, no state. Sounds utopian. In practice, not so much. Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot. Communism's track record is grim. Now let's get weird. Philosophy of mind asks, what is consciousness? Dualists say mind is separate from brain, hard to explain how they interact. Materialists say mind is brain, consciousness is neurons firing. Eliminativists say consciousness doesn't exist. It's an illusion. You think you're thinking, but you're not. If that's true, this video is meaningless, and so is your existence. Fun. The Hard Problem of Consciousness from David Chalmers asks, why do physical processes give rise to subjective experience? Why does seeing red feel like something? Science explains the mechanics, but not the experience. No one solved it. Some say we never will. Free will. Do you have it? Libertarians, not the political kind, say yes. You make genuine choices. Determinists say no. Everything is caused by prior events. Your choices are predetermined by physics, biology, upbringing. Compatibilists say free will and determinism can coexist. You're free if you act according to your desires, even if those desires were caused. Personal identity. What makes you you? Are you your body, your memories, your consciousness? If you lose your memories, are you still you? If you get a new body, are you still you? If we copy your brain into a computer, is that you or a new person? Ship of Theseus problem. If you replace every part of a ship, is it still the same ship? Apply that to humans. You replace cells constantly. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Philosophers argue endlessly. No consensus. Philosophy of language asks, how do words mean things? Do they correspond to objects in the world? Do they get meaning from use? If I say unicorn, does that word refer to anything? Wittgenstein said meaning is use. Words are tools, language games. Don't look for deep meaning, just see how people use words. Logic is philosophy's backbone. Aristotle invented syllogistic logic. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Valid argument. Modern logic, from Frege and Russell, uses symbolic notation. More precise, lets you analyze arguments rigorously. Avoids ambiguity. Paradoxes break logic. Liar paradox. This statement is false. If it's true, it's false. If it's false, it's true. No solution. Russell's paradox. Does the set of all sets that don't contain themselves contain itself? If yes, then no. If no, then yes. Broke early set theory. Led to new foundations for mathematics. Philosophy of science asks, what is science? How does it work? Karl Popper said science progresses through falsification. A theory is scientific if it can be proven wrong. If it can't be tested, it's not science. Thomas Kuhn said science has paradigms. Normal science works within a paradigm. Sometimes paradigms shift. Revolutionary science, like from Newton to Einstein. What about meaning? That's existentialism again. Sartre said life has no inherent meaning. You create it. Camus said embrace the absurd. Live fully despite meaninglessness. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, said humans need meaning. Even in suffering, you can find purpose. Man's search for meaning. Powerful book. Nihilism says nothing matters. No meaning, no morality, no purpose. Passive nihilism leads to despair. Active nihilism from Nietzsche destroys old values to create new ones. Pragmatism from William James and John Dewey says truth is what works. Ideas are tools. If believing in God makes your life better, believe. If not, don't. Critics say this makes truth subjective. Pragmatists say truth is practical. Postmodernism says reject grand narratives, no universal truth. Knowledge is power. Language constructs reality. Everything is interpretation. Critics say this leads to relativism and intellectual chaos. Postmodernists say that's the point. So, what have we learned? Philosophy asks questions without easy answers. What is real? How do we know? What should we do? What is good? What is beautiful? How should we live together? Are we free? Do we matter? Thousands of years of thinking. No definitive answers, just better questions. And that's philosophy, all of it. Well, most of it, explained fast. Now go have an existential crisis. You've earned it.